Hello everyone, my name is Nick Rossi and I'm a master bladesmith, and you are here for one of two reasons. Either you bought one of my knives or you're going to buy one of my knives. And you probably purchased this thing and you're wondering, how do I take care of this? How do I extract as much joy as humanly possible from this thing I bought? And we're going to talk about that. And this is going to apply to all knives, but I'm going to talk about my knives in particular because it's my video. Most of all, I just want to say thank you so much for purchasing one of my knives. So I'm also using this as an opportunity to teach you a little bit about knives and steel to kind of help understand what you bought. So imagine yourself walking into a nice kitchen store and you see the beautiful wall of knives and they've got all the brands, and I've just selected two random brands of factory-made knives that I happen to like. We've got a Sabatier here and we've got a Wusthof, and these are both great brands. You could go buy either one of them and be very, very happy with them. And we've got two different types of steel here. We've got a Sabatier, which is most famous for its carbon steel blade, and we've got our Wusthof, which is most known for a stainless steel blade. So in order to make a knife work and hold an edge and be able to be resharpened and be tough and to be able to cut all the food that we need, we need iron and carbon, and that's basically what a knife like a Sabatier is. It is 99% iron and a little less than 1% carbon. That's really all we need. And this is a simple carbon steel. So when we look at a Wusthof here, that is iron, carbon, and 18% chromium. And the two alloys in these factory-made knives are 1095 and 440B. And do I make knives out of these alloys? The answer is I don't. So I make knives out of different alloys that yield properties that I find to make a better kitchen knife. And I'm not making tens of thousands of these, I'm just making a few of them, and I'm doing it by hand. I have complete control over the entire process. I don't have to make a whole bunch like these companies to support a mass market. So I can use much more high performance alloys that yield a better product. So these are the three steels I do use, and this has come from years and years of experimentation and testing and abuse, and these three steels I've found to be the best three choices for kitchen knives in general. And I've got 52100 carbon steel, I've got AEBL stainless steel, and I've got CPM MagnaCut. And these steels are actually, well, two of these steels are used for industrial purposes. 52100 is commonly used in ball bearings, AEBL is used in stainless razors, and CPM MagnaCut is developed as the ultimate knife steel. So these three steels actually have a lot in common. All three of them are very, very tough, which is in a tribute to kitchen knife steels that you don't hear talked about a lot. But kitchen knives have to be very, very thin behind the edge. They have to be very, very thin right here in order to pass through food very efficiently. And when these are very, very thin, they need to be flexible. And we're also stuffing this knife basically into a hardwood block every time we use it. So that edge, which is very, very thin, is going to be flexing back and forth, and it needs to be resilient. So as far as foot-pounds, all of these steels are about the same level of toughness. And they're actually all about the same level of hardness. They're around 62 to 63 on the Rockwell scale, if you care about that. If you don't, not important. But these have a lot of things in common, but they also have a few differences. So the 52100 is a carbon alloy. So remember I was talking about that Wusthof, and it has the chromium. So this does not have enough chromium in it to make it stainless. And what that means is when you cut food that is acidic, it is going to stain the blade. If you look at this right here, this is all nice and shiny right there. This will be the shiniest that a carbon steel knife will ever be. The first time that you cut a tomato, the first time you cut a lime, is going to start to develop a patina. So that is a coating of oxide on the surface that is going to turn gray and kind of iridescent, and I think it's very, very, very beautiful actually. But if you leave these food acids on there, it can form rust, it can form orange rust, which is not desirable. So this does require a degree of care and consideration. And we have CPM MagnaCut, which is the ultimate kitchen knife steel in my opinion. It is stain free, it holds an incredible edge, And the only downside is, well, there's two downsides. One, it's going to be more difficult to sharpen for you. And number two, it's going to be very expensive because it is expensive and also it is very difficult to forge. And it beats me up considerably to forge a knife at a CPM MagnaCut, but it is a wonderful steel. So there's a lot of debate, either carbon steel versus stainless. Carbon steel, I don't care what they say on the internet, in your kitchen is going to hold an edge just a little bit better and be a little bit easier to sharpen than AEBL. And don't get me wrong, any of these steels is an excellent choice for the knife, and I assure you will outperform even the needs of the busiest professional chef. So you just spent a lot of money on this knife and you're probably thinking, I want to take really good care of this. This is something I want to use for my entire life, pass it down to my kids. Totally understand. These are a few tips and tricks that you can use to take the best care of any knife. This doesn't matter if it's carbon steel or stainless steel. And the number one thing that you can do to maintain any knife is to not put it in the dishwasher under any circumstances. And no matter what the person at the knife store tells you, any knife handle is going to get severely abused by the heat and the turbulence of a dishwasher. And that's just the handles. The blade basically gets sandblasted every time you put a knife in the dishwasher. There's garnet, there's abrasives, and they're getting bounced around and they're basically getting sprayed with all these abrasive cleaners that get your dishes so squeaky and shiny, but it basically ruins the edge of your knife. I could take a knife that is completely sharp, throw it in the dishwasher, and it'll be completely dull when you take it out of there. So after hand washing it, any knife, you're going to want to dry it carefully and put it away. And that leads me into my next topic. So you also need to store these knives safely, and that means keeping them in such a place where you can't accidentally stab yourself. There are lots of ways to do this. Some people like a drawer that just has a clean towel in it. You can put your knives on top of the towel, you can open and close the drawer, they don't bounce into one another. That's a great way to do it. I like using these guards, these plastic guards, and these are really simple, and these are just a plastic sandwich, and you just kind of put the edge of the knife on there, and this protects your edge. You can put this in a drawer, you can put it in a bag, and it keeps you and your knife safe. Some people like kitchen blocks. I think that blocks are gross because there is no way to clean the inside of them. You basically have them get filled with dust and grime and dirt, and unless there's some way to take it all apart and clean it, they're gross. Magnetic bars are fabulous. That way you can see the knife, you know where it is. It displays the knife, which might be important to you, shows everyone how cool you are, and you can also get blocks that have magnets that just hold the knife against the blocks, which are amazing. The last thing that's going to help keep your knives really, really sharp is maybe the most important thing, and that is what you're cutting on. No matter what your knife is made out of, there are certain cutting boards that will just instantly destroy that fine edge. The number one, marble. Terrible. Don't use it. That will dull any knife. It does not matter what super alloy is made out of, it will dull immediately. I'm seeing on the internet titanium cutting boards. Equally awful. Will dull any knife immediately the first time you use it. Glass cutting boards, all terrible. All of those will just completely dull that fine edge that you work so hard to get. So wood is good. Wood is amazing. And this is just a standard thing. It seems it's been around forever, but wood is really what you should be using. And this is just a standard wooden cutting board. And over time, you do get grooves. You do get grooves in your wooden cutting boards. And once every 6 months, if you can think of it, just get a piece of 220 grit sandpaper. Just scrub this and put a coat of mineral oil on this. And this is very, very sanitary. Just wash it, soap and water like anything, and then do that once every 6 months, and you will have a clean, safe cutting surface. So plastic cutting boards are fine. The grooves that you get in a plastic cutting board are very difficult to remove, and you get really, really deep grooves. Bacteria can get caught in those, so I tend to push people away from them. So the happy medium between wood and plastic is this material called Richlite, which is laminated paper. And that is easy to clean. You can put it in the dishwasher, completely sanitize it, and those are fantastic. And another thing that you can do with any knife, and this seems like a really dumb thing, but when you're chopping something and you scrape it off the board, do it with the back of the knife as opposed to the edge. It seems really dumb, but wood is really, really tough and fibrous, and you can dull your knife significantly just by scraping this on the wood cutting board. So carbon steel requires a little bit more diligence in the sense that you have to wash it and dry it pretty much immediately. And with any carbon steel, if you cut something like a lemon or a lime and you leave that lime juice on the blade, it's going to start creating that chemical reaction to form that orange rust. And you want to keep the orange rust off of that. Generally speaking, the orange rust comes off immediately with just the scrubby side of your sponge. And you can just give it a little rub, that'll come right off. And this is an old carbon steel knife that has a really nice patina on it. Every once in a while, some people like to just completely clean their knives, and barkeeper's friend, if you get a really heavy buildup of orange rust or something like that, this works perfectly just to take it back to zero, and you can start cutting tomatoes and start building that patina all over again. And sometimes when people buy one of my knives, they come out nice and shiny, and they get completely alarmed the first time they cut a piece of meat, or like, hey, this thing is changing colors, and that's completely normal with a carbon steel knife. The oxide that naturally comes from cutting food, whether it be that sort of iridescent color or a gray, totally fine. You can leave that right on there. It'll go a long ways to protect the blade, actually. And just the orange stuff is what you want to remove. Now, with a stainless steel blade, whether it be AEBL or MagnaCut, you still have to do all this stuff. It's just that it's going to stay shiny forever. So, sharpening. No matter what steel or what knife you buy, it's going to need sharpening at some point. And there's a lot of fear and consternation about how to sharpen a knife, so the easiest way to get your knife sharpened is bring it back to me. You can send it to me or meet me at a show. Happy to resharpen it for you for free. And there are lots of sharpening services out there of wildly different qualities, so I would always give them a knife that you care a little less about to see how they do before giving them your very expensive handmade knife. If you're going to sharpen at home, there are some tools that I would not recommend, that I would stay away from. And number one, anything that you drag the knife through. Anything that you drag the knife through will be something that you want to avoid. And why is that? It's because they remove too much material. Those are often carbide V's that just scrape material off. And you can sharpen your knife, but you can also take about 10 years worth of use off of that knife in about 20 minutes. So stay away from anything that you can drag through. So I've seen on the internet there are these rolly sharpeners where your knife attaches to it with a magnet and you roll it back and forth and it sharpens it. I find them to be frustrating, but some people really like them, so get your buddy to buy one and then try it out and see if you like it. So you might be familiar with sharpening steel. So steels are the round grooved rods that usually comes in a set of knives, and they've got a handle on them, and you've seen like Gordon Ramsay doing this crazy back and forth with them. And those aren't really sharpeners, those are edge straighteners. So they will take an edge that's bent a little bit and kind of realign it. Those are going to be pretty much useless for any of my knives. In fact, there are these things called jewel sticks or diamond steels that you can get at any kitchen store, and they look like a classic steel that comes in the block, but these are coated with a diamond abrasive. So this doesn't just straighten your edge, these will actually sharpen your knives. And I like these quite a bit. And this can be very scary to knife buyers, but the best thing on the market for sharpening really is a classic sharpening stone. And there are lots of these on the market, and people really get into like Japanese water stones. And I have probably $3,000 worth of Japanese water stones that I've not used in 20 years. And I really like these diamond-coated stones. These are amazing. They're definitely a bit of an investment, but once you buy them, they will last you the rest of your life and probably your children's life as well. And these always stay flat. You can use a little bit of water on them. They never get dished out. They're really very amazing. So sharpening is something that people, especially on the internet, like to make way harder than it really needs to be. And this isn't rocket science. You can do this, and I'm going to show you. So there's a lot of worry about what angle do we want to hold this knife at to properly sharpen it. And we want about a 20-degree angle, and there's a pretty easy way to figure that out. So 90-degree, 45-degree, about half of that. And you want about a half of an inch between the back of your chef's knife and your stone, something like that. And this is a diamond stone, so we can't hurt this. And we're going to be basically taking a slice off the surface of the diamond stone. So I'm going to find my angle, like I said, 90, 45, about half of that. And I'm going to start with the heel, and I'm going to go heel to tip, just like I'm taking a slice off the surface of the stone. And as I get to the tip, I'm just going to lift my right hand a little bit. And you can see I'm kind of holding on to my handle. I'm supporting it, and I'm supporting the tip of the blade with my finger, like so. So we're going to go heel to tip, just like we're taking a slice off the stone. Use the whole stone. We're going to flip this over, and we're going to go heel to tip again. So that was 90, 45, about half of that. And honestly, if you get this anywhere between here and here, it's going to be plenty sharp. You're going to love it. So we're going to go heel to tip, just like you're taking a slice off the stone. And you want to go one side and then the other side. And one side and then the other side. And if your knife is very dull, you want to use a little bit more pressure. I'm using a coarse stone right here, and this is what I recommend that you get. I recommend that you get 2 stones. A coarse stone, which is around 320 grit, and a fine stone that's going to be around 1200 grit. And these stones are made by DMT, Diamond Machining Technologies, not the hallucinogen. And these work really, really, really well. I would say it's going to take you maybe 10 strokes a side. And you can see here, I'm leading with the handle ever so slightly. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm just leading with the handle ever so slightly. And what that does is it creates a scratch pattern in the edge. And that scratch pattern is going this way and this way. So we're almost getting a micro serration at the very edge. And this is going to improve the way that this knife zips through tomatoes. So I'm pretty happy with this. And so I'm going to move on to my fine stone. And so I'm going to do exactly the same thing. And I'm using my fine stone here, and this is a ceramic stone that's made by Spyderco, the pocket knife company. And they make very nice flat stones as well, but you can use both a fine and coarse diamond stone. It doesn't really matter. And so this is just polishing that edge. And I only go to about 1500 grit, 1200 grit when I do sharpening. There are people on the internet that somehow feel as though the higher the grit, the sharper the knife. But if you think about what you're cutting with these knives, food is very fibrous. Vegetables are very fibrous. And we want to have teeth. We want to have that edge, have just that little bit of micro serration to help grab things. And it is going to hold an edge much better because of that. So this edge is getting polished now, and I'm lightening up on my pressure. And I'm just going to be barely touching this the last few strokes. There we go. And this is a strop. You don't have to do this. This is just extra credit, basically. But when we're using that fine stone, we get what's called a burr. And the burr is like this microscopic bit of foil that gets stuck to the edge. And that bit of foil actually prevents it from being as sharp as it could be. And we want to just buff off that tiny piece of foil. And we're going to be doing this in a 2-step process. And like I said, this is getting into like sharpening nerd stuff and isn't strictly necessary, but if you want the best performance out of your knife, I really like doing this. We have two things here. We have a piece of hardwood, really simple. This is just a piece of hardwood, nothing to it. And we have a piece of wood with a piece of leather that is glued to it. This one is fancy in chip cards, but you don't need that. This is just a piece of vegetable tan leather glued to a piece of wood. You can make it yourself. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go backwards here. So you might remember the Old West movies with the barber stropping their razors, and we're basically doing the same thing. We're going to go tip to heel, and we're going to go backwards on this piece of hardwood. And this is going to take that burr off and just polish the edge ever so slightly. We're going to do that, a couple of strokes, and then we're going to go backwards on the leather. And this leather is just natural leather. This isn't loaded or anything. And there we have it. So you can use this diamond wand in place of a stone. It's a little bit more convenient because you don't need a lot of counter space, and it's got a handle on it. And I just keep one of these next to my knives in the drawer, and as soon as they start getting a little bit dull, I'll take this out and I'll touch them up with this. And this has 3 different grits. It's got coarse, medium, and fine, and that's 320, which is very coarse. You probably won't use that much. 600 grit, which is medium, and 1200 grit, which is fine. And I'm going to use this just like a stone, except I'm going to be just holding on to the end of it. I'm going to find my angle, and remember that was 90, 45, half of that. Something like that. So heel the tip, flip it over, heel the tip, flip it over, heel the tip, and heel the tip. Just like that. And I find that having this supported on something really makes a big difference. So the only way you can really hurt your knife is by going way too steep or going so shallow that you wind up scratching your knife. And all that means is that you have to send it back to me and I repolish it for you like it's brand new. But you just really want to maintain that angle, especially as you get to the tip, and try not to lay it down flat against the bevel of the knife. So these are the tools that I really like here. We've got our 3 grit diamond wand, and we've got our coarse stone and our fine stone and our extra credit strops. And these basically do the same thing. You don't need all this stuff. You need this or you need that. The one thing I will say, notice that this is an oval shape, and the stone will maintain the shape of your knife more effectively than this will. After using this for years and years, you might get a little bit of a dip right here in your chef's knife blade. And if you do that, no big deal. Send it back to me. Happy to fix it for you. So the stones might maintain the shape of your knife a little bit better, but either way, they both work fantastic. So how do you know if it's sharp? You could cut some food with it. If it cuts a tomato, it's pretty sharp. That's pretty good. I always use just a piece of paper like this. And if you can slice paper easily, if you can do the wiggle, like so. Wiggles pretty good. It's pretty sharp to me.